So the episode starts with Hal doing a previously on Malcolm in the Middle. And honestly, I thought this was cute. They show a bunch of scenes from the original show, and almost all of them look completely unhinged out of context. Honestly, even with context, some of them are still unhinged. The montage ends on the final shot of the original series with the exploding poop in the car. Then Hal just says, "And you all wanted more of this," which honestly felt like a perfect opening. Then we cut to Malcolm. He's talking to a new intern who seems really enthusiastic at first and asks, "So what does the company actually do?" And Malcolm explains that they make software that tracks food that is still good before it gets thrown out, so it can go to food banks. Then the intern responds with, "What's a food bank?" And honestly, Malcolm handles this surprisingly politely. Then Malcolm turns to the camera and catches us up on his life, and immediately, something feels different. He seems successful, happy, way more positive, and he explains how he did it. His secret? He stayed away from his family. Now that got my attention immediately, because it's not framed like, "My family drove me crazy." It's framed like, "I know what I become around them." That's different. Then we cut back to the family, and honestly, the first thing I noticed was, why does the house look nicer? The outside looks nicer, the inside looks nicer, and I honestly do not understand why. It feels like there is supposed to be a joke there, but I do not think there is. If anything, I almost think it would have been funnier if the house looked exactly the same. Then we cut to Lois shaving Hal's body hair, which is honestly a pretty good callback because it feels exactly like something this show would do, and they are doing it while video calling Dewey. So I should probably address the obvious thing. Dewey is played by a different actor, but honestly, I genuinely thought it was the same actor at first. They did a surprisingly good job. Now, obviously, there are behind-the-scenes reasons for this. The original actor did not come back. Apparently, they kept Dewey mostly on webcam, hoping that might change until the last minute. It didn't. But honestly, I think this worked. And the explanation is actually nice. Dewey has a big concert, which fits because he was always established as being really musical, so honestly, good for Dewey. Then we get introduced to Kelly, and honestly, Kelly is weird. Not in a bad way, just weird. She does not come out of nowhere, though, because if you remember the original finale, Lois was pregnant, so Kelly technically already existed, and immediately we get the idea that she is different from her brothers. She identifies as non-binary, which honestly did not bother me, but I also felt like the episode did not do a huge amount with it. Mostly Kelly just seems to enjoy annoying her parents. She calls herself untouchable, makes fun of Hal trying to use the correct pronouns, but then there is this weirdly sweet moment where she tries saying "I love you" and keeps messing it up, and Hal points out one of them was actually nice, and honestly, that moment worked for me. Then we cut back to Malcolm driving home, and this is where I think the episode actually says something interesting. Malcolm explains that he had to stay away from his family, not because they make him crazy, but because he does not like who he becomes around them. And honestly, that tracks. That feels completely in character, because even in the original show, Malcolm was always aware of himself, and we even get flashbacks showing what he means. His family makes fun of his Spanish. There is some argument with Francis. At one point, he literally gets so annoyed with Reese that he keys his own car just to prove a point. And honestly, that got me. Because Malcolm is not saying, "My family ruined my life." He is saying, "I become somebody I do not like around them." That feels different. So Malcolm explains he developed a system, a way to avoid them without making it obvious. He just cannot talk to them, because he is scared of what version of himself shows up. Then we cut back to Lois and Hal shopping for their 40th anniversary. And honestly, this scene matters more than I gave it credit for, because this is where we find out what happened to Craig. They run into him, and apparently, after the store refused to promote him, there was a completely unrelated and definitely mysterious and untraceable fire, which destroyed the store. So now he works somewhere else. Honestly, classic Craig. Then we find out what Hal's actual anniversary plan is. Lois gets total control over the anniversary itself, but Hal gets to do whatever he wants before and after, and his solution is to become progressively more ridiculous. This time, he hired his friends to sing for her. And honestly, I actually like this, mostly because it implies Hal still hangs out with those guys. But I noticed something immediately. One of them is played by the actor who played the dad in Smart Guy, but even more confusing, I'm pretty sure he also played the cop in that Malcolm Christmas episode where Hal was selling Christmas trees and Reese caused problems. The episode never explains whether this is the same guy. I just noticed it. Now the song itself starts sweet. Then suddenly they keep repeating, "Your sex takes me to paradise." And honestly, that is where it got awkward. Thankfully, they get interrupted by two guys wanting to fight over a meatball. And then those guys say they are going to continue after. And Lois immediately shuts that down, which honestly was funny. So this is where I realized what Hal's story actually is. He keeps trying to prove love by escalating. Every gesture has to be bigger than the last. And he even says he wants to keep going. So instead, he decides to compensate by doing increasingly outlandish things, which then leads into the flower scene, where he dumps an absurd amount of flowers on Lois while she is gardening. And honestly, this worked better once I realized this is not random. This is Hal trying to outlove himself every scene. Then we cut back to Malcolm. And this is where we find out he has a daughter. Apparently, he got someone pregnant in college, and she left 3 days after Leah was born. So Malcolm became a single father. And honestly, good for him. Seriously. That could have gone badly, but instead he stepped up. And from what we see, he clearly loves his daughter. Then he walks in and she's crying. And this is where I immediately liked a decision the episode made. Leah can break the fourth wall too. That felt right. She explains she normally does not cry like this, and apparently has different categories of crying. Malcolm asks what happened, and Leah explains a girl at school invited her to a party as a joke. Now, I actually kind of like that the episode leaves it ambiguous whether Leah is as smart as Malcolm. That feels weirdly appropriate, because honestly, that feels like something Malcolm himself would do, never directly answer the question. Leah does mention she has personality, which apparently causes issues at school. Then Malcolm's phone rings, and immediately he gets nervous. Leah notices. Malcolm tries dodging the issue. Turns out, it's Lois, and he is trying to avoid their anniversary despite the fact his parents clearly want him there. Then we cut to Reese and Hal fixing the bathroom. And honestly, I liked this. Hal explains that lately they have been doing projects together that do not even need fixing. And Reese basically says, "Yeah, I just like doing this." Hal suggests maybe they do something more casual, but Reese seems weirdly uncomfortable with that. Then Reese explains something that honestly caught me off guard. Fixing things together is his metaphor for fixing his life, and Hal immediately gets emotional. Honestly, just look at his face. That moment worked. Then we cut back to Leah at school, and she starts talking to the camera about how private school is basically just regular high school with better funding. Then another girl asks if she got the invitation. The girls walk away. Leah immediately assumes they are making fun of her. Then another girl approaches. And this is where Leah gets awkward. And honestly, I do buy this. She seems socially aware, but she does not know what to do with that awareness. So she ends up saying something about hair fungus, then realizes she messed up, looks at the camera, tries pretending she was joking, which somehow makes it worse. Then we cut to her in the office getting lectured. Now this is where I have mixed feelings. Because earlier I said I actually like leaving it ambiguous whether she is a genius. But scenes like this make me unsure because she says things that sound smart, but also sound like things somebody could know if they had weird niche interests. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more I kind of wish they leaned harder into Leah is intelligent, and that makes social situations harder, instead of making it feel like this is just Malcolm parenting. Then we cut back to Hal and Lois, and now they are in a tattoo shop, and Hal apparently hired somebody to tattoo something romantic for Lois on his back. And honestly, I had no reaction other than, okay, wow, that is extreme. Then Hal says the guy is going to come to the house and flex, and honestly, that tracks for this episode. Then we cut back to Malcolm, and apparently he has a girlfriend, and honestly, good for him, again. So they have this really normal banter and seem genuinely happy together. And before answering his phone, they talk about introducing Tristan to Leah. And honestly, I thought the phone was going to be his family. But instead, we just get Tristan and Leah talking about hoping they like each other. Then we cut back to Hal and Lois. And Hal is now giving this huge speech in a park over a sound system. And honestly, it starts kind of sweet. Then he starts mentioning increasingly personal stuff, and it goes too far, which honestly feels like the theme for Hal this episode. Starts sweet, escalates. Then we cut back to Malcolm preparing Leah to meet Tristan, and honestly, Leah seems on board, which was nice. Then Kelly texts Malcolm saying she is in trouble, so he answers, and immediately, it was a lie. Kelly says she needed to make sure he was coming to the anniversary. Malcolm says work is busy. He is trying. Kelly immediately calls him out. She basically says, "You can run this successful company." But 6 months is not enough notice to take one day off. And Malcolm immediately goes, "That is such a mom move, and honestly, that line got me." Then we cut back to the family. Lois is organizing the party. There is some weird age confusion with Frances being 40 instead of 39. Honestly, I think this might be a callback, but I am not sure. Then they mention converting the garage into a guest room, and honestly, I genuinely cannot tell if they are joking. Then Hal mentions he built it with Reese. Lois takes a shot at Frances not having a real job. Frances immediately pushes back. Apparently, he has worked there for 15 years. Then Lois says his bows are bad compared to Hal's and even Reese's. And Reese just casually responds, "Dad likes me more." Then Kelly shows up and says she talked to Malcolm, and she figured out he is not coming. Then we cut to Malcolm introducing Tristan and Leah, and honestly, this scene surprised me. There is this awkward silence. Then Leah asks, "How much prep did you get?" Tristan responds with random trivia about herself. Leah responds with random trivia about herself. And suddenly, they click. They start comparing facts, then compare trivia about Malcolm, and honestly, their chemistry worked really well. And right when things are going well, Lois and Hal show up, uninvited. Lois immediately starts talking like Malcolm is obviously coming, then realizes Malcolm has a daughter and nobody knew. Leah just quietly goes, "I'm alive." Everybody demands an explanation, and Malcolm explodes. And honestly, this scene worked because Malcolm does not act like somebody being annoyed. He acts like somebody who genuinely believes this. He blames his family for everything and says getting away from them is how he stopped becoming somebody he hated. and you can see he means it. Then Hal just quietly says, "Oh, so the problem is that we exist." And honestly, I understood why Hal was hurt, but I also understood Malcolm, and then Malcolm literally runs, and the episode ends. So I have a lot to say about this episode. First, I found myself rooting for Malcolm. I was on his side, and honestly, I was surprised by that, because I know his family. I watched the original, and one thing this episode actually sold me on almost immediately. You can see a clear difference in Malcolm when he is away from them. Like, look at his life. He became a single father after the mother of his child left 3 days after Leah was born. That could have completely broken him, but instead, he stepped up. He found success, built a company, found a girlfriend, and honestly, good for him, seriously. And maybe the biggest thing, he built a system, not because he hates his family, but because he knows what happens when he is around them. That part actually got me, because Malcolm never says, "They make me crazy." He says, "I become somebody I do not like." That feels different. So do I think Malcolm did something wrong? Honestly, I understand why he did it. I understand why he keeps distance, and honestly, I even understand keeping Leah away, because she honestly seems kind of fragile. And the last thing she needs is being dropped into that family dynamic. Next, this show is only 4 episodes, and honestly, it really feels more like a 2-part reunion special than a full season, which is fine, because I honestly think that is what this is. And weirdly, that made me sad, because I actually wanted more, especially Malcolm, Tristan, and Leah. Their chemistry worked way better than I expected. And honestly, some of my favorite scenes were just them existing together. It even feels like Malcolm himself cannot believe how great they are. Now, as for Leah, I still have mixed feelings. I actually like that they leave it ambiguous whether she is a genius. That feels very Malcolm. But at the same time, the episode keeps implying something without fully committing. And I kind of wish they pushed harder. If she is awkward because she is brilliant, commit. If she is awkward because she is Malcolm's daughter, commit. Right now, it feels halfway. That said, I bought her, I bought Tristan, and honestly, I bought Kelly too, even if Kelly mostly just feels like she is around for now. Which does raise another question. How old are Leah and Kelly supposed to be? I know Malcolm always played fast and loose with ages, but here it stood out enough that I noticed it. Overall, though, I think this episode actually does a really good job catching us up and introducing new characters. Kelly is functional, Tristan works, Leah works. My biggest complaint, honestly, is that we do not get enough of them, especially interacting with Malcolm. Those scenes were easily the strongest part. We also get some nice Reese and Hal moments, and honestly, I liked seeing Reese calmer. But my biggest issue in the episode is actually Hal, and I know that sounds weird, because I understand he loves Lois, but it is 2026, and some of his behavior feels exhausting. Not mean, not malicious, just too much. And honestly, Lois is not helping. She is micromanaging everything, and watching both of them, I kind of understood Malcolm more, because his life actually seems really good, and his parents, they still kind of feel stuck being themselves. Frances seems okay, Reese seems okay, Kelly is still finding her place. But Hal and Lois feel almost unchanged, and maybe that is intentional. So scoring this episode is honestly difficult, especially because it is only 4 episodes and each one is under 30 minutes. But I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because despite my issues, it kept me invested. The chemistry with the new characters worked. The family actually feels believable in 2026. And maybe most importantly, Malcolm's reaction felt believable. You see it almost immediately, Within minutes of his parents showing up, his face looks like it is ready to explode. And honestly, that moment sold me. Whether you agree with Malcolm or not, he believes what he is saying, and that says a lot. Overall, this is a good start, not a perfect continuation, but a reunion that actually made me wish there was more.